And so Facebook is all about how you can share with the people who matter most to you. And it's for individuals. This is one of our data center engineers, so if you see him around town, say hi, he's a long way from home. It's also for institutions and nonprofits. And here, from the community college to, I don't know if there's anybody here from the middle school, but I saw that the middle school wrestling team has a Facebook page. Is there anybody here who's got a middle school wrestler in the family? All right. Well, I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to see a match while I'm here in town. It's also, of course, for small businesses. And I think that's probably the most important thing today. But when I talk about small businesses, for those of you who work with nonprofits or your churches or community groups, the same kind of messages apply. Small business has always been about people. And that was true long before the internet came around. But it turns out that word-of-mouth advertising, while it's really, really good, while your small business should be all about people, it turns out that's really hard. And it turns out that that's even harder online. Getting folks to talk to their friends, their real family, about their real interests and the real things that they enjoy, including your business's goods and services. The reason is, as I mentioned, for a long time the internet was about data. It turns out that we started this thing a couple of decades ago that was meant to just send short messages, and it very quickly became this huge pile of data. And so how do we sort it? And that's what companies started doing, was they sorted information. But it turns out that that's really hard to use as a small business. Facebook is trying very hard to make the internet about people. Now that's all fine and good, but that's pretty abstract, and it's sometimes hard to understand exactly what that means. So for those of you who were on the internet 10, 15 years ago, it used to be that you interacted with Mr. Smiley 428. Mr. Smiley here is a problem for two reasons. First, Mr. Smiley 428 is really creepy. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to share anything with that guy. It turns out that that's probably your Uncle Joe, and he's still creepy, but it's better when you know his Uncle Joe. The second reason this is a problem is, as a small business, it's almost impossible to sell a good or service or get a donation from Mr. Smiley 428. It is almost impossible because you know nothing about him. That's not a real person. That's a Lego head. That's not a real person. So what Facebook is trying to do is help Mr. Smiley 428 be online as his real self. And it turns out that Mr. Smiley 428 is this guy named Andrew who lives in Washington, down the street from me. And Andrew really loves his dog. He likes to go bicycling, and he likes good wine. That's somebody you can market to, and he's also a lot less creepy. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. And I want to talk briefly about something I read recently. This actually happened when those of you saw in the news the revolution in Egypt. At the time, somebody was writing about what was happening there, and he said, "We have historically overvalued access to information, and we have undervalued access to one another. Today, it is unimaginable for you to not be your real self online. People are their real selves every day because we want access to one another. People all over the world are sharing real things about their real selves, and this ranges from the mundane, and I don't know about you, but any of you are on Facebook, I can't count the number of times I've seen an update about what somebody ate for breakfast. So really mundane sometimes. All the way up to the incredibly profound, ranging from really hard stuff to deal with, where having your friends and family around you is really important, to really great, powerful stuff where you want to be able to share this great experience you've had. Now, what that's done is it's led to an explosion in what the internet means to businesses like yours. The internet is a really big place. 100 million active websites. That is a number that I am not capable of wrapping my head around. But it turns out that what people want more than data, what people want more than just some kind of anonymous, boring, hard-to-use internet, is they want each other. And it turns out that there are more than 5 times as many people on Facebook than there are websites in the world. That means that that's where your customers are. And I want to really focus on that. Small businesses like real estate. Location, location, location. And that's been true for a long time. And it turns out that today, your customers are online. Specifically, they're on Facebook, where we reach about 250 million people globally every single day, 500 million total. On average in the United States, 2 times more people use Facebook in a given day than watch American Idol in a week. And I don't watch American Idol myself, but enough people in my household do, that I feel pretty good about the odds of having a customer or a donor on Facebook on any given day. But let's bring it a little bit more local. Here in Oregon, there are about 3.8 million people, and around 86% of them have regular access to the internet. Oregon is a very internet-connected state. And about 1.9 million of them are are on Facebook, which means around half of Oregon's population, or 60% of its internet-using population, is on Facebook. If, at a minimum, 50% of your customers are in one location, it's hard to ignore that and still reach new customers, bring new blood, new funds, new donations into your business. But even more local than that, in the Prineville, Bend, Madras, Sisters, and Redmond area, as of last month, did I get all that right? Madras. I was wondering about that. So if we can call it the Prineville metropolitan area. Here in the Prineville metropolitan area, we've got about 120,000 people. And it turns out that you folks here in Prineville love your Facebook. Because about 71,000 of you are on Facebook as active users. That means more than half of the people who live in this community are on Facebook. And well over half of your internet users are on Facebook. Location, location, location. Ranging from Portland to Bend to Prineville, people are on Facebook. And it's important also to think not just about where they're spending their time, but how they're spending their time. Knowing that people come to Facebook is great. But knowing how much time they spend on Facebook, well, it's also a little disturbing, but it's really great too. This is actually, by the way, I love a lot of these companies here, and I use them every day. But this number I mentioned because you don't want somebody who's walking by. For those of you who are in retail, somebody who walks by your window and sees a product, that's great. That's really important. But for somebody to walk into your store and hang out for a little while, that's how you get new customers, and that's how you hang on to the customers you have. All right, so Facebook's all right, we've got that. Now, how can businesses use Facebook? How can Facebook help small businesses make business all about people? Now, to talk about small business, we kind of have to understand what small business means in this context. The United States economy, there are around 120 million workers, and about half of them work for small businesses. And about half of those have fewer than 20 employees. Why does this matter? How many of you here work for a small business or a nonprofit or a community group that has fewer than 20 employees? That's almost all of you. Now, raise your hand if that group that you work for with fewer than 20 employees has a full-time employee devoted to marketing. Yeah, okay. We've got a couple of organizations out of a couple hundred. That means if you're a small business, you need to make the most of what you have, and you need to be able to market to new and existing customers quickly, efficiently, and cheaply. And cheaply is going to be really important there. Now, small businesses who don't have somebody devoted to this full time, who've known somebody for a long time, the best way to do this, the cheapest way to do this, is to let your customers do it for you. Marketers, for a long time, back when we were selling rocks to one another, have known that one of the most effective ways to market to people is to have one of your friends tell you, hey, you should go do this thing, or I tried this thing and it's really great. But how do you do that on the internet? Well, the internet in particular is a lot like the world we live in today. Small business is a social activity, ranging from your customers to your vendors to your employees. These people all exist in a social world. You've got your employees because your aunt's niece needed a job for the summer, and it turns out that she's really good, so now she's your employee. Your vendor, it turns out, was somebody else's vendor that you trust, and so now you use them. Facebook tries to capitalize and capture on that network of people that already exists in your day-to-day life. So I am, for example, a really big fan of the Humane Society. And the Humane Society here in the Prineville area is on Facebook. They want to make marketing all about people. They want, because the people in this question, not so much the pets, are making contributions. They're the lifeblood of the organization. But it turns out that marketing, to make marketing all about people when you're that small is really hard. So the Humane Society knows that there's this big group of people out there that might be donors. And they want to talk to them. But it turns out that most of the ways that we talk to customers these days is like holding a bullhorn and standing on the street corner and yelling, "We have a sale, come look at my stuff." And it turns out that that's really ineffective because out of the 50 people that you're trying to talk to, only 4 or 5 of them actually are interested in animals, actually are interested in contributing to the Humane Society. So how do we make marketing all about people? Facebook pages is what I want to talk about next. And I think it can be helpful to your small business in 2 important ways. One, creating a business presence on Facebook is really cheap. It's free.